Thank you all for coming out this evening, and welcome to the Monday, August 30th Mayor and Council meeting. We will have a special called meeting prior to open mic night. We'll have a pause of a couple of minutes in between those meetings. So I'd like to start off with our special called meeting, and I'd like to ask Mr. Del Ross to lead us in the pledge. Thank you, and thank you, Mr. Del Ross. The only item on the agenda this evening is Administration and Finance Department. Councilmember Wilsey.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. The first item on the agenda, approval of an ordinance to adopt a millage rate of 4.718 for FY 2022. This is the second reading and will be presented by Ryan Luckett, Director of Finance.
First, we'll hear from legal for the second reading.
And this is an ordinance to adopt millage rate. Now, therefore, the mayor and council of the city of Roswell wish to establish a millage rate of 4.718. The millage rate has a component of 4.618 mills for the general fund operating and capital improvements budget, and a component of 0.10 mills for services and bonded indebtedness.
Thank you. Mr. Luckett.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I have just an abbreviated version of the presentation we went over last Monday, and I'll be glad to present any other information that you might need. But just to start out with some background, our FY 2022 budget was adopted by the Mayor and Council on May 24th. That was based upon an estimated tax digest and a millage rate of 4.955 mills. We received our preliminary digest from Fulton County back on July 2nd. Based on the feedback that we received at the July 28th committee, we moved forward with advertising a lower millage rate, and that advertised millage rate was approved at the first reading back on August 23rd. This is the last and final required meeting regarding our millage rate. And just to kind of go over what is being proposed, for FY 2022, there is a millage rate reduction that's currently being proposed. Our millage rate is made up of two components, the maintenance and operations portion and the debt service portion. Overall, the millage rate is proposed to decrease by 0.237 mills, which is a 4.8% decrease. Based on the direction we received at committee, the M&O rate was reduced to eliminate any revenue in excess of the budgeted revenue amount that was approved for FY 2022. And the debt rate was reduced by utilizing fund balance to help retire any remaining debt by 2024. This chart provides you a 10-year history of our millage rate, and you can see it's steadily decreased over the last 10 years. This chart provides a comparison of the FY 2022 millage rates among our surrounding jurisdictions. And they have all adopted their millage rates at this point, and we are the second lowest millage rate, both from an M&O perspective as well as a total millage rate. So in summary, our property tax digest, the overall digest has increased by 5.8%. Our Roswell homestead exemptions have reduced the digest value by $751 million, which is a savings to our residents of approximately about $130 on average. Our property tax revenues in 2022, the M&O rate has been reduced to bring those estimated general fund revenues in line with our 2022 budget. And as I mentioned, our debt rate has been reduced to use our accumulated fund balance. So at this point, we're recommending a millage rate of 4.718 mills. And as I mentioned, that's a 4.8% reduction from the prior year. So I'll be glad to answer any questions.
Council have any questions? Councilmember Palermo.
Thank you, Mayor Henry. And Mr. Luckett, thank you for this abbreviated presentation. Hopefully all the residents had the opportunity to watch the full one at the first reading. And because related to that, although I am certainly happy that this council is interested in reducing the millage rate. I am disappointed because it does not lower it enough. For the fourth consecutive year, I am advocating for a further reduced, greater reduced millage rate. And a part of that reason why is even though reducing the millage rate, we are not reducing it back to the rollback rate. And when we do not reduce it to the rollback rate, it is a tax increase. And that is something that I do not think is justified for taxpayers right now. And so I really do just request this council, please support reducing it even further so that we can get it at least down to the rollback rate and therefore avoid another tax increase just like we had last year through not going back to the rollback rate. So those are my comments. Thank you.
Additional comments from council? Is there anyone in the public that would like to come forward and speak? And I would like to remind you all to please fill out comment cards and leave them up at the podium. Any comments from the public? Okay, I will bring it back to council. Do we have a motion?
Yes, Mayor, thank you. Motion to approve and adopt, to approve a millage rate of 4.718 for FY 2022.
Motion to approve by Councilmember Wilsey. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Councilmember Tizer. All those in favor, please raise your hands. And it's Councilmember Tizer, Wilsey, and Judy. All those opposed, Councilmembers Zapata, Hall, and Palermo. I will vote in favor of the motion, so it carries 4-3. Thank you, Mr. Luckett. Now we will take just a 2-minute break so that they can switch over the computer to our open mic night, and then we will reconvene. Open mic night meeting, and once again, I'll remind you to please fill out a comment card and leave it up at the podium when you come forward. So who would like to come forward first? Yes, ma'am, please come forward.
Janet Russell, Roswell resident. Good evening. As you know, I come frequently to these meetings and I have a really good memory, so I want to refresh yours. I thought I'd give you, I don't have a cell phone, so I can't take pictures of things and then flash them here. So I want you to close your eyes and imagine the verbal picture that I'm going to give you. You're on Highway 9 coming into our historic district, and on the left, the Atlanta Street Baptist Church is currently vacant. It's gone. Slightly north of that, on the same side as Salon Julian, it's up for sale. The owner moved to Savannah, had nothing to do with COVID. Continue on the right, the entrance of Canopy is an historic home. It is currently for sale. Next to it is another historic home. It is for sale. We've arrived at the historic square. Emblematic of the problems on this historic gateway area, the Visitor Center and Roswell Inc. have vacated the property in that building. Ironically, we traded that building several years ago to the Mims Corporation for an out parcel on the empty shopping center that he owns on the other side where they put a new firehouse. Even though we had several parcels of property that had been deemed acceptable, we decided to trade a piece of property in an empty shopping center on 6 lanes of highway for a prime piece of property on our historic square. And rather, while not an historic building, it was probably built in the 60s to be a bank, because that's why there's a drive-through in the back, we traded it, and we've been paying him $7,000 a month rent. Last April, the Historic Visitor Center closed because of COVID and did not reopen ever again. A few weeks ago, you signed an MOU with the Roswell Inc. and the Visitor Center. And within days, they closed those 2 offices, which I found very interesting, to say the least. Within days, the letters on the side of the building that say Roswell Visitor Center were gone. The building has not been pressure washed, nor has it been cleaned. Just the shadow is there. Continue north on it, and right next to where Spiced Rate Barbecue is an empty red house where the shutters are falling off. The weeds are growing, and I remember sitting in this chamber when the Orkin man bought it. That's Orkin of Orkin. They've never done a thing with it. It had been a really fine restaurant and then a bridal place. Continuing north, we have Maple Street, and then we have Chippers Club, which is now completely closed and will not reopen. Just slightly north of that, we have the infamous Oxbow project. Oxbow, by the way, will now become a part of our vernacular here in Roswell. It will be a subject, a verb, and an object, and a noun. We're going to say it's really an oxbow, isn't it? Or boy, that got oxbowed, or we're oxbowing this project, aren't we? We've introduced a new word into our vocabulary in Roswell, meaning total screw up, in an adjective or a verb or a noun. Continuing north at the Oak Street, the Wender Roberts is empty. Down Oak Street, Whiskey Project and the Tappan 6 are gone. Slightly north of that is the gas station, which is right next to Oxbow. There's a pest control place. That has been empty for 6 or 8 months, nothing to do with COVID. We get to Hill Street right over here, and it's a used car lot, basically, without permission to be a used car lot. Which reminds me that 4 weeks ago, this council denied a car lot to the Mazda dealership, but approved one to Enterprise Car within 1/8 of a mile of each other on the same heavy industrial zoned area. You gotta wonder. The Southern Skillet's still empty, the Wells Fargo is. East Alley, where we spent $1.97 million to create an active space, is a garbage dump with stinky garbage, broken flowers, broken plants, broken benches, broken everything, but food trucks delivering food. I told you it was a service alley, nobody would listen. Close to $2 million. Just want you to know that you need to stop the historic Gateway project. Now you're going to create an urban heat island by removing all those trees. And just as a reminder for those of you who weren't here, the Oxbow Road project that cuts through over to Mimosa, the Roswell Presbyterian Church made an addition to their church at one time, and they were required to put in a sidewalk. They were never exempted. It was deferred. I expect them to pay for it in this project. I don't want them to get a pass because they're a church. It was required. It was not exempted. It was deferred. Kathy Field was the community development director, and a Mr. Wilson was her assistant. By the way, the Historic Gateway project is not GDOT driven. A couple of other things, and I'll make it fast because I'm running out of time. Once again, we had to welcome home 13 dead Marines this week. We're all sad. Those of us who lived through the Vietnam War and saw it every single night on television for 10 years remembers the death of our men, 58,920. I brought a lot of those men home in the belly of my plane. I watched them loaded with forklifts in body bags into my planes. And then I watched the living dead get on my planes to come home, and nobody ever welcomed them home. We built a Faces of War memorial here. When we have events, I'm tired of seeing the wine and beer tent stuck right in front of the memorial, and I brought this up 3 times to our event communities director. Don't do it. Oh, I'm so sorry, I'll tell them again. Don't do it, damn it, or I'll get up there and I'll make a fuss with the police.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Russell. We appreciate your comments. Is there
Great.
anyone else that would like to come forward and speak?
You didn't like that,
Yes,
huh?
sir, please come forward.
You didn't like that
And-
reminder.
I would like to remind you all to fill out a comment card. Thank you so much.
How does this? But the. Jason Yowell, 5010, Old Oak Trace, candidate for mayor. I'd like to talk about the Oxbow investigation. What a surprise. We've spent $71,000 so far. According to the letter of engagement, which you see on the screen, upon completion of each phases of investigation, a detailed report will be prepared and presented to you to include a full synopsis and chronology of what occurred with respect to the progress of the project from its inception to the current, and also recommendations for best practices for future progress. Now, what's interesting is in the local paper where the mayor talks about the investigation, her executive assistant is quoted as saying that because no interim reports were required, they will not be available to be released either. Correct me if I'm wrong, but didn't we just go through a lengthy, expensive report from a consultant called the Strategic Plan, and there's a lot of blather about transparency. I'm just waiting for the transparency, because when you've got a letter of engagement from an attorney saying that they're going to be providing these interim reports, and then you've got the mayor's assistant saying, oh, we're not requiring any reports, so we're not getting them. It seems to me that you're approaching governance here as hear no evil, see no evil, and we'll have the final report after the election. Thank you very much. This is unacceptable. There should be interim reports. These interim reports should have been shared with council, and yet, what do we have? Nothing. A lot of talk, a lot of money. I can't believe you spent $71,000. I told you what the problem was. Bad planning, bad contracts, bad oversight. So far, you've gotten rid of one of the people responsible for that. I'm still waiting for the other two to be fired. If I get elected, those people are going to be gone day one. I told you people before you were sworn in, after you got elected 4 years ago, those of you who are incumbents, if you don't go in and fire some people right out of the box, you'll never get control of this city. And I was right. Oxbow is a perfect testament to that. Now, you still have the Gateway coming up. This is a prelude to the Gateway. The Gateway is such a bad plan, it's so ill-conceived, and the only defense your transportation director can come up with is, we've been working on it for 10 years. Wow, really, 10 years, and this is what you came up with? Your transportation department has an interesting approach to road development, and they put it on the website. Concept plan, detailed plans, right-of-way acquisition, construction. Now, as a developer, about the last thing you're going to see me doing is spending money on final development plans for land I don't control, that I don't own or contractually control. And yet, your transportation department just doesn't hesitate to spend a lot of money on plans. Then you get caught with, well, we don't own the land yet, but now we're going to subscribe to the fallacy of sunk costs because we got so much money in the plans, we'll pay whatever it takes to get the right-of-way. So it's a backwards way to do things, and this is why you have the Oxbow debacle. You've got the same thing happening with the Gateway. Your whole Gateway plan is predicated on putting a pedestrian bridge on the east side of the roadway. It's the wrong side of the roadway for a variety of reasons, not the least of which it's the more expensive side, it's the less scenic side. And guess what? After 10 years, the landowner in Sandy Springs that owns the property that this whole project is predicated on still has not been approached. Oh, not your concern, because You're not the city of Sandy Springs. You're the city of Roswell. It's your project. It's out of control. You spent $20 million. This thing is supposed to cost $50 million. Who knows what it'll cost when it's done, if it gets done the way it is currently designed. If those plans aren't tossed in the trash and the design isn't redone, it'll be 10 years to get it constructed. It'll be a disaster, the likes of which Oxbow is only a prelude. If you like Oxbow, you're going to love the Gateway. If I'm elected, those plans go in the trash and we start over. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Is there anyone else that would like to come forward and speak? I don't see anyone approaching, so thank you all for coming out this evening. Stay dry, and we are adjourned.